Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the 2026, June 2026 Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council meeting. My name is Karthik Balasubramanian. I am a professor at Howard University and work at Howard and live in Ward 6. I have an eye condition called macular degeneration and can't drive, and puts me in the majority of folks who have a disability who can't drive. This council is for is a mayorally appointed council to represent the voices of people with disabilities around the district, to help people get around in a safe, affordable, reliable, and accessible manner. Generally, we start off with just a round of quick introductions, and then we'll jump in. Today, we've got our primary guest is the DPW director, Director Anthony Crispino. I don't know that he's here yet, so we can just do a quick round of intros, and then as soon as he gets here, we can start a discussion.
He just joined the call.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome, Director Crispino. I really appreciate you being here. As I mentioned, this is the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. We can maybe do a quick round of intros. I'm Karthik Balasubramanian, work in Ward 6, or live in Ward 6, work in Ward 1. Maybe the other council members can do a quick intro as well, and then we can just jump right into a discussion.
Yep. Hi, this is Sharon Koshi. I'm a resident of Ward 5, also a council member on MAAC.
Kelly Mack is unable to be here. She's been traveling and from internationally. She might be able to jump on, so we're going to save the charge that she's led towards the end, so hopefully she'll be able to join as well, but I'll hand it over to Matthew.
Hi, my name is Matthew Gosbach. I am the staff president of Ward 5 and part of the council.
Excellent. And then Zach.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, District Department of Transportation Liaison to the MAAC.
Excellent. And Peter, we also have the acting director of ODR, Office of Disability Rights, on the council as well, but he's also traveling for today, so he won't be able to make it as well. So yeah, we can just kind of go ahead and jump right in. Really appreciate everybody joining. Maybe you can just hand it over to Director Crispino just to say a few words. We have a set of questions that we'd love to kind of discuss with you, but yeah, just in case you have anything that you'd like to say first, or any questions for us, and then I would love to jump in to a discussion.
Thank you for having me. First, definitely apologize. I'm driving home from the cabinet meeting, so I can't put my camera on while I'm driving.
Sure, no problem.
However, I'm glad to be here to try to work through some of the issues this snow season, and I'm sure some of the snow seasons past. Snow is one of those tricky things in the Mid-Atlantic region. We don't always get big storms, but when we get them, trying to address all the issues that we present is a challenge, especially since it's a coordination between multiple agencies in the district. But there's always room for improvement, and I hope that that's the outcome that we can get from this.
Excellent. Great. Well, yeah, thank you so much. There are basically two big buckets of questions that we have. So generally, well, yeah, and for council members, feel free to jump in at any point. And then, yeah, we generally have very productive discussions. We had the DDOT leadership last month, and next month we've got the Department of For-Hire Vehicles leadership coming. We're hoping to have the leadership of the Office of Risk Management, and then in the future the Office of the City Administrator. So yeah, generally we love to have productive discussions just to share our perspectives on basically trying to navigate the city as disabled residents of the district, and just getting around, as I mentioned before, safely, conveniently, reliably, affordably, and accessibly. So the first bucket, where I'm hoping that Kelly can join for snow clearance, but essentially we've come up with two big buckets of questions that we'd love to drill into. So first is around DPW's responsibilities and opportunities around towing dangerous vehicles. And then the second is around snow clearance, specifically as it relates to folks with disabilities. So we'll start off on the towing side. So I'll start off with a kind of a very deliberately vague question about towing. What cars get towed and why?
Okay, I mean, you're gonna have to be a little bit more specific. Are we?
Yeah. So the reason,
snow,
or so specifically around just in general, DPW has a fleet of tow trucks, so we can both boot and tow. And there are kind of, the website says generically, the towing policy or towing is available as a tool for DPW for vehicles that pose a danger to the public or impede the flow of traffic. So that is a pretty broad mandate, but the way that we've experienced, it's kind of heavily done in kind of very specific circumstances and not done at all in others. And that's where I just kind of, before we kind of dig into specifics, just want to understand like how you understand the towing function at DPW.
well, so yeah, DPW is responsible for enforcing parking enforcement regulations, to include what we're talking about here. So there are a couple different areas, as you've alluded to, under that broad panoply of services that we provide. So for instance, a main factor right now on a mayoral priority is addressing one of the tenets of Vision's. Those are vehicles that have an excessive amount of either parking enforcement violations, automated traffic enforcement violations, and it's the Vision Zero committee's view that those vehicles represent a danger to the streets. So those vehicles are sought after and impounded until the NOIs are paid off, or the drivers suffer with the DMV. Likewise, we also, in the morning and afternoon rush hour, we in the flow of traffic in and out of the city. Other types of relocations that we will do involve, for instance, if a sister agency like DDOT is undertaking paving and emergency no parking signs are up, we'll enforce those and courtesy relocate the vehicle.
545.
In addition, we also, I'm trying to think, if there are other infractions like so dangerous vehicles, we have abandoned vehicle inspectors that their job is to go through all of the wards, and if there are vehicles that meet the criteria outlined for public space, either they present a danger in the community, such as entrapment to children, they present a harborage or something of that nature, they could be removed from public space as well. It has dead tags and they're no longer DMV, they're member your liable.
I think you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know about other folks. Maybe it's just my connection, but are other folks having a difficult time catching the director?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I think we got most of that. Dr. Cuspino, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just in case it cuts out again, there's another option too, is you can just dial in with the phone rather than using the data connection. But I think as long as we've got each other, it's great. So maybe we can hone in specifically. We're a huge supporter of the expanded pilot on ticketing and towing scofflaw vehicles, or towing scofflaw vehicles. Back in May 2023, we led in conjunction with the Pedestrian Advisory Council and the Bicycle Advisory Council, we created a joint resolution asking for the enforcement, and kind of specifically a tiered and targeted enforcement campaign focused on the most the kind of most prolific scofflaw vehicles, the folks that had a high number of moving violation fines. And it seems like since then we've had some movement on that. I know that we've been in touch with Councilmember Nadeau's committee staff, and also directly with her about her pressing forward for additional resources for the boot and tow crews, which has been fantastic. One question specifically around that is that we brought up in this letter. I'm not sure if you've seen it since then. It's been a while. We sent it back in May 2023. Was making a dashboard specifically for how many vehicles how many vehicles have significant moving violation fines or ATE tickets that have not yet been found and towed away. Has there been any discussion about creating such a dashboard?
Not that I'm aware of, and I'm wondering if that. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but I'm wondering if that, because the violation data is something that DMV maintains.
Yep.
It would have to be something that would involve DMV to create a dashboard like that. So like when our folks, we know the violators, just like the public can look up a plate and find out, how many outstanding NOIs and fine amounts that a vehicle has. That's similar to what we have. I'm not sure we have access to or are tracking like where the vehicles are situated. At best,
Yeah.
I've seen kind of a heat map for where the violations are occurring, but in terms of what you're talking about, like, oh, well, license plate DC 1234 specifically, $15,000 in outstanding violations. I don't know if that's something we have access to, but to long story short, I am not aware of a map of that nature.
Got it. Okay. So one thing that would be so we know that MPD has a hot list. They maintain a top 100 list, or maybe it's a top 80 list, or something to that effect. Is that something that DPW would support making public?
I don't know why not. I mean, look, these are scofflaw vehicles. I mean, they're people that are actively, engaging in behavior that is violating the rules of the road and incurring inordinate amounts of tickets and fines. So, no, I mean, I wouldn't see a problem with that. I mean, it's no different. Like if you were to incur criminal charges, that's publicly available information that can be searched on the DC Superior Court's website. So I don't know why a moving violation would be any different.
So the reason that we're so concerned about this is that folks with disabilities are particularly, some people are particularly at risk for reckless people operating their vehicles in a reckless manner. We kind of jumped into action after the Lexus SUV back in, I think this was 2023 also, who this lady was drunk, had $18,000 in tickets and killed 3 people. And this is every time someone like that is able to operate a vehicle, they are very likely going to injure someone, if not kill them. And that's something, as folks with disabilities who are not able to potentially see as well or hear as well or move as well, this puts us into like an extra vulnerable situation, and we're particularly reliant on the government to make sure that these people who are operating their cars as deadly weapons, just like someone with an AK-47 just kind of randomly shooting their gun around, like these are people who operate their cars like guns and can kill like guns, and we want to get them off the streets. So every tool that we have, that every way that we can make DPW more successful at getting some of these reckless or separating people from their vehicles that are being operated as deadly weapons, we want to support. So there, I think, two things. So one, making this list public, and then two, creating a fast track mechanism for folks, for the public who see one of these vehicles parked on the street, a fast track mechanism to alert DPW, hey, this is one of those hot 100 cars or top 100 cars that has, over $5,000 in moving violation fines, come pick it up. And that's where we would love to see, right now it's DPW going around with LPRs looking for these vehicles, and maybe MPD as well, but to be able to enlist everyday citizens who are very concerned about reckless driving on our streets, I think this would be a really, really good thing. So maybe the ask here is, we'll follow up with DMV about the specific list, but is creating some mechanism for the public, some official mechanism for the public to directly notify DPW, this is one of those worst of the worst offenders, come pick them up immediately or as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's room for improvement in that. I would be hesitant to cut 311 out, and the only reason I say that is because 311 is the mechanism that ensures accountability and transparency. It's how you can go back and check to make sure that the agency has acted upon a report coming from citizens. So I don't want to add a layer, but I definitely want to make sure that again, that we have the accountability. But I'm sure there's got to be ways that we can improve the reporting system so that it's. I don't know if you'd ever be able to actually obtain real-time reports, but as close to that as possible to dispatch a tow crane.
Yeah, or just like some mechanism. It could be on 311. 100% could be on 311, but just something that will flag immediately to. Like as a high priority ticket, as like, okay, we have identified one of these, like, I'll just call them, they're AK-47s that are just sitting on the ground. Like we've identified one of these AK-47s, let's go and pick it up. And that's like kind of the process. That it could be on 311. That is, I think it would be great if it was on 311, but it would just have to be connected to a system that would fast track a tow dispatch car, fast track the dispatch of a tow truck.
I see what you're saying. Well, the other thing, because the LPRs, remember, the LPRs are running off of a database. It's just making sure that the lists that DMV has, to your point, like, so if a new scofflaw comes on, making sure that it is in there so that when our tow cranes or any other vehicle that's tied into the database with the LPR comes across it, it immediately hits.
Yep.
It's another angle as well.
Yep. So kind of the other thing we brought up this to the DDOT director in years past as well, is that one problem with the LPR readers for folks on the call, LPR license plate reading technology, is that they're oftentimes they're thwarted by license plate covers or tinted license plate covers, and it also thwarts automated traffic enforcement cameras. And so we brought this up to council as well. And this is where I think, deputizing the public as well. So, if you see a tinted license plate cover, hey, like, these people are trying to hide for a reason, like run that, like look at that plate and put it in and check to see if they're one of these reckless driving or reckless vehicles. And that way, you know, DPW driving around a car doing, you know, thousands of LPR scans in a shift is not going to be able to stop and look at, you know, an obstructed plate. But you know, citizens who care about this can do that, and that's why kind of again, like, it's really important to be able to kind of enlist the public in hunting down these vehicles. So yeah, just a plug that for that in particular. But no, we appreciate the partnership, and we'll explore with DMV, and then we'll come back to you if you're open, we can once we get some answers from DMV, we'll come back and re-engage, and maybe we can have another discussion.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's merit in it. I mean, the more eyes, the better. Like, it's akin to like a neighborhood watch, and that's been around for decades.
Yep, absolutely. So it's fantastic that you're open to that. So the kind of going back, and as mentioned before, other council members, feel free to jump in at any point. Going back to the kind of more philosophical, kind of how we dispatch tow resources. We've got limited tow resources. You know, there's some things that essentially will warrant a ticket, and then there's some will currently just ticket and then just leave, and then there's some things that are currently an immediate tow. And one of those things, it seems like, is rush hour restrictions. So if a car is parked in rush hour restricted place, it gets towed, and that is great. We need the roadways clear, and we want efficient traffic operations across the district. But the reason I bring this particular item up is that, you know, that corresponds with the impeding the flow of traffic mandate that DPW has for towing, and it also may pose a danger to the public. But there are also other things that impede traffic and also create a danger to the public as it relates to folks with disabilities. So, for example, there are quite a few people who park on sidewalks. There are quite a few people who block crosswalks. There are quite a few people who park right up against a crosswalk, and this violates our sightline regulations, our municipal code that says you cannot do this because it makes it wildly dangerous for folks to walk across the street. There was recently a child that was killed in New York City by an NYPD tow truck who couldn't see around a parked car. And this is why we as the MAAC have been focused so heavily on daylighting with DDOT. But I raise all of this to say, right now, if you were to report this type of behavior on 311 as no parking anytime, the most that someone, or also with bus lanes as well, the most that someone could get is a ticket.
6 o'clock.
In practice, the most someone is going to get is a ticket. They're not going to get towed immediately. How do we get that changed? Because it really is a parallel between, you know, it impedes the flow of traffic, it impedes pedestrian traffic, wheelchair traffic. It also poses a danger if we've got wheelchairs that need to go out into the road, sometimes without a curb cut, need to go out into the road and around parked cars that are just randomly parked on the sidewalk. Like, how do we just get them towed instead of ticketed?
I think Mike, can you guys hear me?
Can.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, you hit a good point. Like, look, there's a finite number of resources, and I am constantly stressing to the parking enforcement administrator, there has to be a balance between the rush hour relocations, which are important for keeping the arterial streets open, making sure that, you know, emergency vehicles can go up and down, commuters can come in and out, visitors, all of that. and balancing that with doing the enforcement in the neighborhoods, which covers I think the violations that you're talking about. There are certain categories that should be an immediate tow if our folks come across it. For instance, fire hydrants, handicaps parking, designated parking spots, crosswalks, as you've, yes, that should be an automatic tow. That is not a parking spot. Like, you should not be doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, though, you're right. In some circumstances, the things that are kind of borderline, those probably might not rise to the level of a tow. It's going to be a ticket. So to go beyond like those categories that I've just mentioned, that would be, in my mind, an automatic tow because they present an immediate danger or impediment to somebody with disabilities. It's going to require a regulatory change. Changing it so that you include language in an existing code provision that says, in addition to a fine, it would allow DPW the authority to immediately remove the vehicle to alleviate the danger to pedestrians and the like. The other thing, it would likely, if you're going to expand our jurisdiction so that we would have the ability to tows take time, which means likely we would probably need some more resources to ensure that we could carry out the mandate to the appropriate level. So it would be a request to whoever is going to replace Chairperson Nadeau to ensure that we're properly allocated, personnel and resources, and making sure that the regulation gives us the authority to remove in what currently would be a borderline case.
So that's where I've been trying to figure out. I've done significant research trying to track this down. And so far, the only language that we found is like pose a danger to the public and impede the flow of traffic. And it is like, so there's nothing that specifically authorizes rush hour parking restriction, towing, and relocation, and deauthorizes crosswalk towing. So the reason I bring this up with crosswalk or sidewalk parking, I've probably filed 30 or more tickets specifically around sidewalks. And none of them resulted in a tow, and only a few resulted, probably 3 out of the 30 even resulted in tickets.
Interesting. Yeah, if you could, I don't know about the circumstances. If you could forward me examples, that's something that I can definitely bring up with the parking administrator and ask for an explanation, and then, provide information back to you guys.
So one thing in particular that I think would be good, so even if it's not especially, we don't believe that it requires any legislation change. I think it just requires like a change in how we do business. And I think it doesn't even need to be a full policy change in the sense that, hey, like, as a matter of course, if we see a crosswalk, someone parked in the crosswalk, it's going to get towed. I know we don't have resources for that. But even if it just happens a few times.
No, if my folks see something in a crosswalk, my expectation is that they would remove it. What I was referring to is because I think the example you use is a sightline issue. So if the vehicle is not actually in the crosswalk, but it's pressed right up on it, I don't know if we'd be able to tow under those circumstances. But if a vehicle was actually impeding the ability to use a crosswalk, or the ability to access a hydrant, or a handicap reserved space, my expectation is that those vehicles would in fact be removed. That wouldn't just be like, leave a ticket and next time we'll get you. No, those spaces are reserved. The hydrants need to be available for the fire department, and people need to be able to get across the street at designated spots so that they're safe.
So having filed probably over 100 311 tickets personally, I've and many for those specific instances, it's never resulted in a tow. I mean, I would be thrilled if it did happen. So a crosswalk, so parked on the sidewalk, parked in a crosswalk, parked blocking a hydrant, or just parked in a place that completely cuts off the ability for wheelchair. So parked blocking a curb cut, which kills the ability for anyone with a wheelchair to this is often right at a crosswalk as well, like blocking the crosswalk. It's never happened. So that's where it's like, I think, in practice, this is where, in theory it could happen, but in practice it doesn't. And that's where it's just like, how do we, even if we don't have the resources to get it done in a 100% manner, like just starting to have it happen in a few places where like people start to get the picture that, hey, like it may not just be a ticket. It may like delete, like this car might get towed, and now that changes people's behavior. That's ultimately like the reason we exist is just so that people with disabilities can just get around. And these are things like, cars impeding our ability to get around is like first and foremost, like it's a huge issue.
And I'm happy to work with you guys on it. Like
Yeah.
I said, if you want to send me some examples so that I can illustrate the issue to my managers, I'm happy to do that so that we can start to get some more targeted enforcement. And I just also want to clarify too, when we're talking about towing, just like with rush hour, that doesn't mean that the vehicle is being impounded. If it's just a NOI eligible infraction, the car would be relocated to a legal parking spot to clear up the impediment to
That's great.
crosswalks, the
Yep.
hydrant.
That's great. Just
Of course,
like,
it met some other criteria.
Yep, that's great. I mean, that would be like that itself would be a great start.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at it and work with you guys on that.
Perfect. Yeah. So we really appreciate that. We'll send a follow-up email for some of these items. So before we move on to snow clearance, I just wanted to give an opportunity for anyone for any of the council members to follow up on any of the questions. Sharon, Matthew, has Kelly joined? I'm hoping that Kelly is joined by now. Okay, great. We've got Peter, Director Stoppin, who's with Director of ODR on as well. So welcome. Okay, yeah, Matthew, good on questions for now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then let us shift over to snow clearance. So yes, so snow clearance is a huge issue for us, as you can imagine. So especially for folks with mobility impairments, this is a major issue because Kelly Mack, who unfortunately is not able to be here today, she's traveling internationally, wrote a letter. I'm not sure if you saw the letter back in November 2025 on behalf of the MAAC, basically recounting her experiences from the previous snow in January and February of 2025, and the inability for her just to get around. We've had some other council members in the past with wheelchairs who ride wheelchairs who are essentially just trapped in their homes because of sidewalks that are not cleared, and not just private sidewalks either. It's kind of sidewalks on major arterials, so Rhode Island Avenue or New York Avenue or Georgia Avenue, that are not necessarily even in front of businesses. So there's a whole patchwork of who's responsible for what, and it seems like the fundamental problem for us is that it doesn't seem like there's kind of a unified, coherent understanding of who is responsible for what. That's part one. And then part two is that the prioritization is almost always last for sidewalks. But there's kind of one thing that I want to start off in particular, and that's about curb cuts. Curb cuts are super important for folks with who ride wheelchairs, because if they can't get on and off the curb, then they functionally can't leave a block. And one thing in particular, we had the snow coordinator West come on, and we couldn't really kind of pin down an answer that actually works. Is how do we make sure that the curb cuts are cleared, so plowing the streets don't just pile up on the curb and basically make a massive impediment for wheelchair movement.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to add to,
Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, just to add to that, I think today the practice is very much when you're clearing snow, it is all dumped onto the sidewalk. In fact, so not only is it not, the sidewalks are not clear, but there's an understanding that the way you do this today is just dump it onto the sidewalks. And that is a real problem for people who use, mobility scooters, people who use wheelchairs to be able to get around. So I would just want to add to that as well.
Okay, so I'll take a piecemeal. So, to be clear, there's no directive at DPW to place snow on the sidewalks. We operate plows. The plows, all they do is they push out of the roadway to the closest, whether that's the edge of the cars or to the curb cut. But in a city, there's literally no place else for the snow to go. We try to remind the drivers to be cognizant about that. But like, for instance, the storm we just had, with the amount of snow that we had, there wasn't any place to go. So where it kind of ended up on the edge of the plows, unfortunately, where it froze in place. As for the curb cuts, this is an issue. I'm aware of this. This is an issue. And for context, so DPW and DDOT, as the two primary members of the DC snow team, we only have, because we're in the mid-Atlantic, and most of our snowfall, it comes, and then within a day or so, typically the temperatures come up and the snow melts. So by and large, it's not a problem. However, we are now getting into this pattern of weather where in 2016, 2010, 2026, we're having these large storms that are taxing the amount of resources we have. So we put all of the municipal plows out, but then we have to resort to contract plows to augment the number of plows we have. We do have training for the drivers where we, teach them or remind them how to drive the plows, because not all of them, they're CDL holders, but not all of them, because they have other jobs in the summertime. So we are trying to coach them on how to be cognizant of curb cuts. We are in the process of rewriting the position description for the snow coordinator position, and I am hoping to recruit somebody from either the snow belt or upstate New York who has significant experience in sustained snowfall operations, because I am aware that other jurisdictions, because they snowplow a lot more than we do, have better skills or techniques to try and keep the snow as they're pushing it from piling up at the curb cuts, which then creates the impediment for folks that are wheelchair bound or have scooters or any disability. I'm trying to find ways where we can start to incorporate those practices into our training regimen. It's going to, but to temper expectations, it is going to be difficult with contractors. We don't always use the same contractors year over year. We don't always use the same contractors storm over storm. So it's figuring out a way in the snow events where we do have contractors, and this is a major issue, getting them to understand that they have to be cognizant of the curb cuts and not allow the snowfall to pile there. It is going to be a work in progress. I will commit that we will try to get this incorporated into our training protocols and enforce it through our zone captains in the snow seasons that are upcoming. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Really kind of appreciate movement and kind of prioritization on that front. Kind of along the same lines, so there are clear standards for what constitutes a cleared roadway. Like, can we also come up with a clear standard on what constitutes a clear sidewalk?
Yeah, I think that, yes, I don't know why we couldn't do that. I believe, and I have to double check, but I believe our standards or our categories for clear roads are based on the standards that are set forth by the Regional Council of Governments. and I don't know why we couldn't look at that and then work with legal to make sure that it's above board and just tailor that for sidewalks as well.
That would be very helpful. Just so that, this is kind of one thing that, we try to bring up. I'm not sure if you missed it at the beginning, but, one thing that we're constantly trying to elevate is that most people with disabilities, of which there are thousands in the district, don't drive.
Right.
So, when we, and it's an easy assumption, for car dependency is all around us. So like, it's an easy assumption to say, oh, roads are clear, we're good. But like, it's actually not true. It's even more, especially if, the snow piles up in the sidewalk, like it's not just bad, but it's actually worse when the road is clear, and the sidewalks are not. And then, we actually had strong words for DDOT when, they suggested that, people with disabilities no one should be walking or otherwise not in a car on a road. And it's just like, well, where do you expect people to go if their sidewalks are filled with snow and ice and only the roads are clear? How can anyone who's not in a car get anywhere?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And I think where you're going with this also, now that we're talking about it, a standard would be helpful because when residents do clear their sidewalk, not everybody clears it the same way. One person might look at it and say this is passable and it's only the width of the shovel. Well, that's great if you don't have a disability and you're on 2 feet, but to your point, if you're in a wheelchair, that's not going to work. But what objective standard do we have that we could point to and say, well, you didn't clear it to standard? So I see where you're going with this, and yes, I think we could work on figuring out how we take the road standards and tweak that to sidewalks, and then have it reviewed for legal sufficiency and all that stuff, just so that the residents know what to expect, we know what to enforce, and you guys, your expectations are met as well.
We really appreciate that. And I mean, I think, we've mentioned this to every director that we've met, is that, we know that things are not going to be perfect tomorrow. We know that, everything in government takes longer because it has to go through kind of a bunch of layers of review. But, I want to commit, like, for us, like, we want to be there to support, like, if you need like help reviewing things, or you want feedback or ideas, or, we would be thrilled to be a partner to you and your team as you develop this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad ODR is on the phone. Like, we've had a long-standing relationship with the previous director. Looking forward to working with the current director. We've utilized them and their knowledge on issues before in the past, and definitely would like to rely on them as well as you guys for input as we tackle these issues. We're not the experts. DPW is not the experts. I'll put that. That's why we have committees like you guys, and that's why we have ODR, Office of Human Rights. You guys are the experts, and insights are very helpful.
And actually, my apologies. So I missed it. So both Matthew and Peter, you've got your hands up. Go for it, Peter. And Matthew and Peter, either one of you, go for it.
So I was asking about, fitting the standard and all that, but and you had said you contract different people, not necessarily the same, at different snowstorms, different years, all of that. So let's say they even though we've done the standard, this is what we've done in training, but they're still putting the snow on a sidewalk. The problem happened again. Do we have a backup plan to prioritize and address those areas of concern to relieve quicker, instead of just leaving it there and waiting for it to melt? Like, how can we, one, identify, hey, this happened, there's snow on the sidewalk, it's creating a major barrier. How do we redirect the people that we do have to resolve it quicker instead of waiting to the end of a snowstorm like we did this year? Can we have some type of idea for that?
I mean, this again comes down to resources, unfortunately. But what we started to do towards the tail end of this storm, which started to expedite the removal process, is that as resources started to free up, and maybe instead of trying to free up on the back end, working with whoever takes the snow coordinator position moving forward, working with them to develop a way to set aside resources. So like a quick I guess like a tiger team, if you will, or an escalation crew. So that while the bulk of the folks are working to address the conditions on the road, when those removal operations create impediments that we're talking about now, we also have this escalation crew that we can compile a list, and whether or not that's residents reporting it in, 311 requests for block curb cuts, we have an escalation crew that can instead focus on those service requests so that we're getting a faster response time.
Hey, Karthik, this is Peter.
Director Stefan, yeah, go for it, please.
Director Crispino, it's nice to see you earlier today and have you on
Yeah,
this
absolutely,
call.
both.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in and say, yes, absolutely. This is our area of expertise to advise DPW and sister agencies on the ADA best practices. And so I think we definitely are happy to work with DPW on establishing a standard like that. I noticed in the comments someone said, how about let's start with the ADA standard for starters. I agree. I mean, of course, 36-inch wide path would be a bare minimum, but you also have to consider that DDOT uses the PROAG standards, and that's 48 inches minimum. So anyway, I think there's some discussion to be had, because even, like Director Crispino was saying, if someone just clears the width of their shovel, that's even if you don't aren't in a wheelchair, you still can't pass somebody, right? So like, I don't know, so we have to establish a standard. I definitely agree, and I think we can work with DPW on that, and this, the MAAC, obviously.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I really appreciate that, Peter.
Great. Thanks so much, Director Stefan. Sharon, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and thank you, Karthik. So I just want to zoom out a little bit and just share that my opinion is that our sidewalks should not be maintained by residents. It just creates a completely unharmonious and unstandardized approach to solving bigger problems like this one that may fall on deaf ears everywhere. It is property owned by the city. The city should absolutely care for it. I also want to say working on, disability rights is a very challenging issue because it often feels like we are asking for permission for our rights as opposed to demanding to be treated like equal citizens. And when you create inconsistencies in the experience by saying there aren't resources for you, disabled person, we can't address it, that creates a second class citizenship layer in this country. And I think for leaders like you, it is important to go advocate for those resources because sure, like people will never have money for us, but we have to ask that you advocate for those resources as well. So that is just two things I do want to say, zooming out, two issues that may not be solved immediately, but it is important we're anchoring to those.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sharon. Yeah,
No,
I'll second that for sure.
Yeah, you are 100% right. Like, you're right. Resources, the availability of resources shouldn't make anybody feel like their rights to freely move around the city are being ignored. I agree. And wherever possible, I do ask for more resources, and I will continue to do so. I don't want you to think that I'm like throwing up the white flag or throwing down the towel. These are longstanding issues. And DPW is committed to partnering with ODR and with you guys to tackle this wherever possible.
Thank you. And I mean, I just imagine and I feel very strongly that sidewalks should be maintained by the city, especially on major arterial roads, because I just imagine going around creating a standardized clearance kind of policy that, first of all, nobody will even know because the city is absolutely notorious about communicating policy changes and, allowing citizens to be educated appropriately on it. But creating that type of model just, you know, enc- it will encourage some serious political backlash, which runs contrary. I worked on road safety issues for years now, and just the most common sense laws, because of political backlash, can be, you know, will cease to be implemented. And so I worry that the best intent can be derailed if we're creating legislative solutions to problems without thinking about how do we eliminate them completely.
And this is Peter. I just want to chime in for context that the requirement that private landowners clear their own sidewalks is, to the best of my knowledge, would require a legislative fix. That's in the DC code. So
Correct.
yeah.
And then, by the way, none of those owners own those sidewalks. So it just doesn't make sense from even a property rights law. Is the sidewalk is not the property of the owner.
It's not the property. That's right. Yeah, you do have to maintain it as the owner, ostensibly, at least under current law. So, but yeah, definitely. I mean, that's not something that ODR or DPW can fix, though. Unfortunately, it's something the council would have to handle.
Yeah, it's a much longer problem. I mean, I live on an arterial road, so you might imagine it is a bigger problem for me to go out and clear the sidewalk on an arterial road.
Yeah, yeah. But in the short term, I think it would be very helpful to just to create, to just put something in writing about, hey, this is what is expected. There's ADA and there are guidelines, and I think just like making it clear to residents, like, these are the guidelines, this is what you should be doing, and putting that in in communication. And this is what you can expect as well, not just, hey, this is what you need to do, but as someone who just hasn't, either someone with disability or someone who has an interest in just being able to walk, like, this is what you can and should expect from sidewalks in the district. They should be clear to this extent. So yeah, thank you for those. Any other questions from the council? Or any other thoughts? So we're coming right up against 6:30. So we will, really appreciate your time, Director Crispino. We will follow up by email from this conversation. Really appreciate your engagement and your team's engagement. We want to kind of continue to chip away at this, and we all love the city, and we all really wanted to make it better, even if that change is slow. So yeah, we'll put all of this into an email, and then hopefully we can invite you back sometime early next year, and then continue to make progress.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want this relationship to grow. Maybe even before next year, like late fall, as we're approaching the snow season, just so that if there are any updates or meaningful progress that we can report out before the next snow season really gets underway. I think that makes more sense than when we're in the midst of it. And
that's great. Yeah, even better.
And that way we have both parties, all everybody on the call, we have better sense of expectations.
Even better. That's fantastic. Yep, we'll follow up by email, and yeah, maybe sometime in October or November. It would be great to have you back.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that is a good idea, because we could potentially work with ODR to incorporate into the training some of the guidelines, so that they are backing our trainers up with what the legal requirements are. Maybe we could have a meeting with have ODR come speak with our sweep inspectors, who are the ones that actually do the enforcement of clearing sidewalks and issuing the NOIs, just so that they actually are aware and they hear it from the experts on what they should be enforcing, and if they have questions, they can get them out of the way before the season actually starts.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Awesome, appreciate it, buddy.
And just an idea for your contractors who are require who you contract to clear the snow, you could build in a fine system for them if they violate your contracts. So that's a great way to collect some revenue for the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we can bring up with OCP as well to see, what provisions could potentially put into a contract.
Nothing like money to motivate people, I say.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we really appreciate it, Director Crispino. We'll be in touch by email, and yeah, we'll be thrilled to have you back in the fall. And in the meantime, looking forward to kind of iterating on this and making some progress.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, great. So now we can shift to our regularly scheduled updates. Naya, would you mind putting the agenda back up on the screen?
Sure thing.
So we've got perfect. So a few things. So we've got a couple special guests from the AAC here. They voted to support some of our efforts. There's still some kind of internal machinations that need to go on. So there's nothing kind of official yet, but just kind of unofficially endorsed our recommendations on horizontal wayfinding, the pilot that we had talked about, and then. And also, they discussed the ADA short-term parking PUDO zones that we had suggested in the central business district. They still need to kind of coordinate with their board to kind of make it official. But yeah, so I saw Sandy and Sarah both on the call. I just want to make sure that I'm representing the vote accurately.
Hi, this is Sandy. Pretty accurate. The AAC vote in support of the PUDOs has received an okay from Metro's legal counsel, but yes, it's still some machinations going forward. They had some questions about the other horizontal wayfinding. Whether that was something that AAC could recommend as an entity sort of within Metro, or whether we had to speak individually in support of it. So stay tuned. We'll let you know. It's possible that council didn't quite understand the point, and maybe if we explain it to them more clearly, they will. I don't know. I apologize that I got better answers. Sarah, if you think you could clarify what I said, please jump in.
Oh, I know that sounded right. Yeah, we have never done this exact thing before, so we're sort of breaking new procedural grounds on how this would work. So we'll need a little patience before we can get back to you with an official anything or other. One comment on the last discussion. I'm so glad that I was able to attend this meeting. I will say that this is a big passion project of mine with the snow clearance issues. As part of one of my other jobs, I'm also on the Alexandria Commission on Persons with Disabilities. And we wrote a very long letter with a bunch of suggestions to the Alexandria City Council about snow clearance and things like that.
Yeah.
And the AAC also had a bunch of questions for WMATA about clearance around bus stops and things like that. So I think this would be great ground for even further sort of regional coordination or cooperation, or putting our heads together about, real concrete things we can recommend or ask for. Happy to work with you guys in the future on that too. So just throwing that out there.
Fantastic. Yes, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. I wish, so Kelly has kind of spearheaded all of our work on that, and she's and just traveling internationally today. But yes, 100%. I'm thrilled I'm thrilled we're already connected, and I'm excited for you guys to meet Kelly as well. Cool. So that's update on that. So we have dangerousdc.org up and running for folks that haven't seen it. I'll take over sharing real quick and just give people a tour. basically, this is kind of goes with our work on daylighting in particular, although it may broaden beyond that. So yeah, if you go to dangerousdc.org, folks can submit photos. So basically, daylighting is so that folks can cross the street safely. So this is an example of poor daylighting. This turns out to be against the law. We had DDOT. So you may not be able to see this, but there's a sign that used to be right up against a crosswalk, and DDOT a couple of years ago, after us bringing this up a bunch, including to the director, finally moved the sign, but there's still paint that indicates that people can park right up against a crosswalk. And the huge problem with that is that that obstructs the visibility of turning drivers, and that can result in injury or death to people, but especially people who are lower to the ground, like children, or like folks in wheelchairs, or people who are slower. For example, if you're in a walker, you have less reaction time before you get injured or killed by a turning driver who can't see you because there's a parked car. And this type of infrastructure really matters. It may just, what does paint matter? Well, so this is what happens. You have a bus that's parked right up against a crosswalk, and there's someone who literally parks in the crosswalk. And this is our site that basically describes a particular issue, and then also records the 311 ticket. It's just kind of a secondary way for so this particular issue is theoretically will be resolved by May 26, 2027. And there's kind of a bunch of these. This is another one where there's both a sign and a marking that shows that people can park right against a crosswalk. And this is just a few blocks away from. I work at Howard, and we had a student that was killed walking on a sidewalk by a speeding vehicle, who didn't see the kid or the student and killed him. And this is just a few blocks away. And these are things that really, really need to get fixed, because it's not just, hey, we need to do it because of safety, but hey, it's actually against the law, because there's DC regulations that a municipal code, the actual statute says this is illegal. So our signs and our roadway markings cannot be encouraging people to violate the law. And so there are quite a few examples. These are just a few that are up here, and as they get resolved by DDOT, we'll slowly grow them out, or maybe we will make a hooray, like a congratulations, like this is solved sign on this. But yeah, just quite a few of these issues. dangerousdc.org. You can filter for various types of violations, but yeah, primarily around DDOT markings and DDOT signs. There are some non-DDOT signs and some places that need infrastructure, so there aren't signs that tell people to do things illegally. But for example, this is one place. This is literally at the same intersection where one of our students was killed, and someone's parked right up against the crosswalk. So it's not just moving the signs or roadway markings, but it's also potentially putting some sort of flex post or something to fix this. Oh, Zach, and Zach has been coordinating with the team, I know, at DDOT to make some progress on this. We had a great meeting with the associate director or the deputy director of DDOT to make progress on this. So Zach, you're going to say something?
No, so I will follow up with them to see which ones they were able to sort of review. I know that there were a couple that they were going to open some work orders on. It may still appear closed on 301, but I can get I can get specifics on which ones those are. And
Great.
thanks for sending all those updates and letting me know which ones we didn't have 301 requests for.
Yeah. So the major, just to update folks, like, so the ones that need infrastructure, like there's not a clean way to put that in 311 right now. So like basically like, hey, this needs flex posts. Like there's not a way to say that, like, because there's not a law that says, hey, you need to put up flex posts, but it would be good. So so yeah, so there are no 311 associated with those, but 311s associated with everything else. But yeah, I mean, I will be excited to, like, you know, as things get cleared, we'll put like a, you know, some celebratory action on some of these pictures and say, hey, this is done and congratulations. That will be wonderful. So yeah, if you can just kind of let me know if you start to hear of like work orders being cleared, or even if there's some, like, you know, further site. I don't know if DDOT work orders are public, but it would be great, like, if there's a work order number, we can put that in there and say, oh, this is all in the system as a work order and it's going to be done by the state. That would be really great too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah, so folks on council or anything else, any like questions or thoughts, any suggestions on the site? Cool. Okay, great. So then I think we can move on from that. And then Neo, would you mind putting the agenda back on the screen? Yeah, so then oh yes, DDOT bus priority. Have you received any updates from the bus priority team for this month or last month, Zach?
The only update I have is that, well, at 7 p.m. tonight, there is a public meeting on the Nanny Helen Burroughs bus priority corridor, and I can put that in the chat, and I can also share the document too in the chat as well, if that's helpful. But nothing in particular besides that update.
Okay, cool. If they can, like, continue to provide that, like, that document that just shows, hey, this is updated, like, or this is you know, even if there's no update, just say that there's no update on anything.
Yep.
But just like, it would be good to celebrate these, like, and just to be able to, like, to, you know, to communicate progress of, like, oh, you know, we're now, you know, we've gone from 30% design to 65% design, or whatever it is, like, or, oh, like, construction is anticipated for this day or for this month or for this season. Like, that type of stuff is, like, would be very helpful to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So that would be great. Yes. So then going forward, we've got, oh yes, we have not yet approved our April 2026 minutes. So I'm going to very quickly just run through that. Or actually, Naya, would you mind flipping over to the April 2026 minutes? I'll talk those through, and then we can do a quick vote to approve those. And then we can have our, yeah, so in the April meeting, we had a discussion with with Jamie Harrington, the bus priority branch manager, and we also adopted 2 of our letters, one, the red pavement markings, and 2, the 6:45 horizontal wayfinding. So if you can scroll down to the minutes, that would be great, Nao. Thank you. Yes, so we opened, Director Manager Carrington came and spoke. We had a bunch of questions. We had a bunch of questions and suggestions for him. We talked through specific projects and talked through how this kind of a general update is very useful to us. So we're excited to receive these monthly. about bus priority and bus priority projects around the district. And we got updates on specific projects on 8th Street and Georgia Ave. We brought up, we a request for project clarity. We and brought and asked for communication of project updates and data. We brought up the request for BRT deployment. Seems like good things since then have happened on the Gold Line. Maybe we can explore that in a future meeting. Then we brought up the two particular things of interest to them. One, the horizontal wayfinding pilot. Essentially, what that is just putting a marking on sidewalks indicating where there are bus stops and where the bus is going. And then secondly, to start marking out where there are bus stops, so buses can come park flush against the curb, so that folks in wheelchairs can actually get on and off the bus properly and as are intended. And so we brought up the fact that right now, yes, we have clear lanes and we do ticket, but there are people who park in bus stops and obstruct the bus's ability to pull up against the curb for two reasons. Either one, they don't know, or two, they don't care. For the don't care people, there's not much we can do except enforcement. But for the folks that don't know, of which there are undoubtedly some, we can proactively indicate to them, hey, these are spaces that you should not park in because this is a bus zone. In other cities like New York City have demarcated these spaces as bus zones, and even in the district, we have a few places that are marked as either with red paint or white X's, where this is kind of a bus only zone. So this is something that we want to expand, and we advocated for that. And it seemed like both branch manager Carrington and the deputy director that we had in the following month supported. So we'll continue to push on that. And yeah, he also mentioned that we engage with WMATA, and that's great because we have now new friends from the AAC, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, or council from WMATA on the call, and now we kind of are in great correspondence with them. And that is, I think that's it. And then we just talked through logistics. So I think that's what we did over the April meeting. So I will just call for a vote, motion to adopt our meeting minutes for the April 2026 meeting. Is there a second? Is anyone able to second that motion?
Yep. Seconding.
Perfect. All in favor of approving our April 2026 meeting minutes? Aye.
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 Perfect. Great. Thank you. So with the quorum, we've adopted our 2026 April meeting minutes, and I think then can you flip back to the agenda? Thank you, Nao. Now we can flip to our last few things. So next month, we've got the Director of For-Hire Vehicles, Jonathan Rogers, coming to be with us. In August, we've got Laura McNeil, who's the Associate Director of Curbside Management, so basically parking from DDOT, and also Freight Branch Manager and Curbside Manager as well. So August should be a good meeting, as well as July. And then we'll work on scheduling for September, October, November, and December. We already have DPW director who's committed to coming back in the fall. So, that could be October, November as well. And then we've just, from here, we've just got kind of public discussion. Like, one thing I want to kind of preemptively note, like, we definitely want to figure out what happen with the interpreters, and we'll work on making sure that that doesn't happen again. But yeah, I'll just kind of open up to general discussion, either from the public or any council members. Anyone?
I wonder, Karthik, is it possible to, at some point across the year, maybe think about the kind of legislative changes we want to advocate for, and then
Totally.
invite a member of the current sitting council into the meeting to talk through that? Is that
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, maybe we can, like, maybe what we can do, we kind of have this kind of standing committee. So like, Matthew is kind of just took on, community engagement. And, if you're interested, like, it'd be great if you wanted to spearhead,
Legislative changes. Haha.
yeah, or just our thoughts on legislation and what legislation we want to, because we can, I'd be thrilled to support anything. So yeah, absolutely, and kind of what council
Okay.
member we should invite, and yeah, that would be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to take a stab at this. Do I just email everyone
Yeah,
to
just
form a
email,
committee?
just kind of put your ideas on paper, email everyone,
Okay.
and we can have a discussion by email, and then we can adopt stuff during meetings.
Okay, excellent. I will get started on that.
Perfect. Cool. Excellent. What else? Anything else that kind of folks have on their mind that want to discuss? Anything? All right. Well, then I will call it 8 minutes early. So thanks everyone for joining the June 2026 meeting. The Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council will meet the second Wednesday of July, 5:30 p.m. macdc.link/meeting. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great June.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.